Okay, today's daf is Shabbat daf lamed chet. The shiur today, this week's shiurim, are dedicated by Carolyn Ben Ari in appreciation of the Hadron community and for a refuah shlema to all those who need it. Okay, we're going to start at the top of lamed chet, right at the very bottom, actually, of lamed zayin amud bet. We're dealing with right now a question. Ba minei Rechia bar Abba, shachach gdera al gabei kira. Today we're going to have a bunch of sugyot, a bunch of questions and things where it's not going to be 100% clear what the question is. What exactly are the details of the questions that we're asking? So this is a good example of where we see that when it comes to halacha l'maaseh and what actually we're supposed to do, if we don't exactly know what the questions are that the Gemara is asking, it leaves open interpretation for many people to come up with different interpretations about what exactly are we dealing with here. So our question is, you left a kdera, a pot on a kira. Remember, kira is what we're discussing right now, which is not garufa katum, and bishla b'Shabbat, and you cooked it on Shabbat. So the question is, mahu. If you cooked something, bi'isur, it wasn't allowed to be cooked, and you did it anyway. Now, what happened here is, you did it accidentally. It says shachach, you forgot it. So what does that mean exactly? Well, it means that you put it there before Shabbat, intending to remove it. You didn't accidentally put something there. You accidentally left it there. So you put it before Shabbat, which was totally fine because you can cook before Shabbat. You didn't intend to leave it there on Shabbat. You intended to move it before Shabbat. But you forgot, and you didn't. So what's missing here is what we usually call a ma'aseh avera. You didn't actually do anything wrong. You kind of just forgot to do something, which would have, so putting it there was no problem. It was that you didn't take it off. So now you cooked it on Shabbat. What happens? So ishtik v'lo amar le v'lo midi. He gets asked this question and he doesn't know what to answer. So he's silent. This is a good example of people should learn when they don't really know the answer to something. They shouldn't try to open their mouths and spout whatever they think, but they should actually be silent and think about it and don't try to respond immediately. Limachar, the next day, nafik darash lahu. The next day, he goes out and he says, okay, it says in the Mishnah, hamevashel b'Shabbat b'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. If somebody actually cooks on Shabbat, now this isn't cooking because he left it from before Shabbat, okay? We're assuming, by the way, that, again, there's different debate about what we're assuming. Are we talking about something that must have not been cooked before Shabbat, and he left it there and it cooked on Shabbat? And again, let's assume that we're talking about it wasn't garufa katum. He hadn't moved the coals to the side. Now remember, what's the concern? The concern is it's only the Rabbanit here. If he doesn't move the coals to the side, the whole concern is that maybe he'll come to soak the coals. So in this case, what happens? Cooks it on Shabbat. He doesn't know what to do. He says, I'm not sure. So he says like this. If you did it on purpose, mevashel b'Shabbat, I'm sorry, if you actually cooked, okay, this is not actually cooking. This is you left it before. But if you did an act of cooking, put on a fire on Shabbat and you start cooking your food, or the fire was going before, and you put something that wasn't cooked at all. You put it on the fire on Shabbat and you cook it, bishogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. If you didn't remember it was Shabbat, or you forgot that it was usher to cook on Shabbat, then it's going to be forbidden, meaning you can't eat that food on Shabbat. But b'mezid, if you did it on purpose, lo yochal. I'm sorry, I didn't read that right. B'shogeg, if it's shogeg, accidental, you can eat it. If it's mezid, you can't. V'loshna. And in our case, we don't distinguish shogeg and mezid. So now, that wasn't a very clear answer, right? He just said, we don't distinguish. We don't distinguish. It's all allowed, or we don't distinguish. It's not allowed at all. So, my v'loshna. What does this mean, v'loshna? Two different interpretations now. Rabba v'Rab Yosef havayu lehetera. Think about it. If it was forbidden, if on Shabbat you actually cook, okay, as opposed to this case where you didn't actually do a maaseh. So we're machmir if it's mezid, we're mekel, we're lenient if it's shogeg. So here, if we're going to say lo shna, we're obviously going to go and be more lenient here, because here you really didn't do any sort of act, you just left it there. So that's exactly what he says. Says mivashelhu dekavi maaseh. If you cooked, you actually did something wrong. B'mezid lo yochal, and therefore, if you did it intentionally, we're going to penalize you. Aval hai delo kavi maaseh. Here he didn't actually do anything. B'mezid nami yochal. Even if he intentionally left it there. In other words, let's say Okay, you put your food on your pot on the fire before Shabbat. You're warming it up, your soup, and right, this happened to me once. I totally forgot to turn the fire off the soup. Okay, and I left it there. Right. So if that were the case, and let's say it hadn't been cooked before Shabbat, so we'd say it was right. We're going to allow it. Okay. If when Shabbat came in, I realized and I said I'm planning to just leave it here. Well, we'd say it's fine because anyway, you didn't actually do any act. You didn't actually put it on the fire on Shabbat. But Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar li Isura. And here we have something very interesting. He says, no, we're going to actually penalize you even if you did it b'shogeg. We're going to be more machmir on you in this case. Why? Because you'll say like this. Now we've seen, this comes up in a lot of cases where we're actually more machmir on something that's only asher midorabanan rather than something that's asher midoraita. Why? Because mevasherlu tilo ate liarume. To actually intentionally cook something on Shabbat, we're not worried you're going to trick people and say, oh, I did it accidentally so that your food can get eaten on Shabbat, because Shabbat is a malacha d'oraita. We're not worried you're going to come and start tricking things. But and therefore b'shogeg yochal, okay, but not b'mezid. Aval hai ta'ate liarume. But here somebody might come and trick people and say, and he doesn't want his food to go to waste, or she doesn't want her food to go to waste. So what will they say? Well, Shabbat will come in, they purposely left it there. They'll say, oh, I just left it accidentally because anyway, it's only d'Rabbanan. So if it's only d'Rabbanan, they'll say, it was accidental. And therefore, b'shogeg nami lo yochal. And therefore, we penalize you even if you left it accidentally. Why? Because we're worried that if we say, if you left it accidentally, it's allowed, then people will lie even when they did it intentionally and say, oh, I left it accidentally. Again, the assumption being, if it were really b'mezi, they did it, if it were really mevashel and they cooked it on Shabbat and they put it on the fire on Shabbat, they're not going to lie about that because they know that that's asher mido, right? Even if they don't care, they're not going to lie for other people. But when it's only d'Rabbanan, they'll say, we can lie a little bit. So now we're going to have a question on Rabbi and Rav Yosef. Meitive, from the following source. Shachach k'tera al gabei kira. So that's our case. You leave a pot on the fire. Ubishla b'Shabbat. B'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. So again, if it was now here it says our case, and what does it say? It distinguishes shogeg and mezid. Now theoretically, this sounds like it's a question on both interpretations of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, because in both, right, he said according to both interpretations, he didn't distinguish shogeg and mezid. But we'll explain why it's not a question according to Rav Nachman. So first of all, let's continue in this braita. Okay, that's the important line for us. B'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. But now they're going to say, in which case are we referring to? B'chamin shelo huchmu kol tzarkan, b'tafshil shelo b'shel kol tzarko. This is all, as I mentioned earlier, this is all if it wasn't cooked from before Shabbat. Because again, if it gets cooked on Shabbat, it's a problem even if you didn't actually do the maaseh of cooking, right? You left it there in a way that it cooked on Shabbat. So that's only if it wasn't cooked fully. But if we're talking about leaving something on the fire where water was already boiled, and what did we say with boiled water? It's only worse for it if you leave it on the fire. And even a tafshil shabishal kol tzarko, even if it's going to be mitztamek v'yafelu, even if it's good, still it's only d'Rabbanan, right? We're only concerned maybe you'll stoke the coals, but first of all, he didn't necessarily even stoke the coals, and therefore, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid yochal. Even if it was intentional, we allow you to cook, we allow you to eat it, because really, there was nothing done wrong. It's only a d'Rabbanan, maybe you'll come to stoke the coals. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Now, Rabbi Meir, why does he allow something that's mitztamek v'yafelo? Because what happens now? He wasn't allowed to leave it, so he benefited from leaving it. However, he didn't benefit so much from leaving it. It was only a minor benefit because it was already cooked. It's just cooking a little more, maybe a little better, but he doesn't consider that enough hana'ah to say we're going to forbid you from eating that on Shabbat. By the way, we're going to get to a whole long sugya about different opinions about what happens when malacha is done on Shabbat in a forbidden way. Can you benefit, or can you benefit after Shabbat? Can you benefit, right? In which cases is benefit allowed at all? Can you maybe never benefit from it? There's all different opinions about things. Right now, we're just talking about this particular issue. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chamin shuchmu kol tzarkan mutarim. If it's hot water that was boiled and was fully boiled, that we're going to allow. מפני שמצטמק ברע לו. ותבשיל שבישל כל צורכו אסור מפני שמצטמק ויפה לו. However, Rabbi Yehuda distinguishes between exactly what we distinguished yesterday, mitztamek v'yafa lo, if it's better for it or if it's worse. Rabbi Yehuda views that kind of hana'ah as problematic, and therefore, b'chol mitztamek v'yafa lo, and here he tells us, what are some examples? Kigon, kluv, ufulin, ubasar taruf. Okay, for example, cabbage gets better the longer you cook it. Full beans, right? You know, beans have to cook for a very long time. And basar taruf, and soft meat that's kind of broken up into pieces. Again, we saw this yesterday. If you want to serve whole pieces, it's not so good. But if it's soft meat that you're happy for it to cook for longer, then those are asur. Okay, we're going to have two issues with this. First, we brought this whole thing because of the first line about the distinction between shogeg and meitzid, and we're going to raise this question on Rav Chia bar Ashi, who said, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, who said, there's no distinction shogeg and meitzid, and then we're going to see though the questions only on Rabbi Rav Yosef, who said that they were he was more mekel rather than according to Rav Nachman, who said he was more machmir. We're going to see why in a minute. The other issue we're going to have, if you notice this, is that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda are the exact opposite of what we saw of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda yesterday. If you don't remember, I put it on the sheet, and we'll get to that in a minute or two. Okay, but before we get there, we're going to first deal with our first question, which is Katani Mia. However, it says this, they often do. They don't always do this in the Gemara, but when they have a long Breita, and then they want to get back to the Breita, they say, oh, wait, where were we? Why did we quote this? So we're right in the center of the daf now. It says Katani Mia, Tavshil Shelo Bishel Kol Tzorko. Right? It says that Tavshil Shelo Bishel Kol Tzorko. It wasn't fully cooked, which is our case. And B'shogeg Yochal B'mezid Lo Yochal. So Bishlamala Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, according to him, who said that we're machmir all the way, also in shogeg, also in mezid, lo kashya, kan kodem zera, kan la'achar zera. This Mishnah was before they instituted. Now we're going to learn that according to everybody, at a certain point, the rabbis decided even shogeg we're not allowed to, because we'll see why in a minute. I'll leave the because to the side because we're going to see why. But eventually they made a gzera that even b'shogeg you can. So we can very simply answer. Before the gzera, we said b'mezid, right? 1 second. According to him, right? He says we forbid the whole thing, and this was before the gzera, where only mezid was problematic, but shogeg wasn't. That's very simple. Ela l'Rav Rav Yosef da'amru lehetera, I kodem zera kasha mezid, I lachar gzera kasha nami shogeg. If this was before the gzera, then what do we say? You know, they both agreed that at some point there was a gzera. So they only disagreed about what Rabbi Chia bar Abba was saying. So if we say that this was before the gzera, then we don't understand why mezid is allowed. In other words, if Rabbi Chia bar Abba said mezid we allow along with shogeg, well, we don't understand why mezid would be allowed. And if it's after the gzera, then kashanami shogeg. If he did it after the gzera, then theoretically he shouldn't have allowed shogeg, because the gzera was we're going to forbid shogeg also. So in fact we say kashya. So really Rabbi Rav Yosef is difficult. It doesn't make sense according to this source. So now the Gemara gets into my gzerata. What was this gzera? The Amar Rav Yehuda per Shmuel, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rav. Okay, they passed down in 4 people's names. B'tchila hayu omrim. Originally they said, Hamevashel b'Shabbat b'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. If you cook on Shabbat, okay, this is the Mishnah that we quoted before. If you cook on Shabbat, accidentally, you didn't know it was Shabbat, you didn't know it was usher to cook, so you can eat. But b'mezid, if you did it on purpose, you can't eat that food. V'hu hadin l'shogeg, and it was the exact same law for shogeg. Okay, and this is why Rav Nachman doesn't make, right, Rav and Rav Yosef don't make so much sense. Misherabu mashhin b'mezid v'omrim shchechim anu. But what happened? Okay, and this is something that happens a lot where they say Misherabu. All of a sudden there was some phenomenon that people were starting to leave their food on purpose, but they would claim that it was shogeg. Oh, I forgot it. I didn't really mean to leave it there, because it's very easy, right? Nobody knows. It's just all in your mind. Okay, this is like what we talked about with the woman in Hadlakat Ner and then the challah, right? That theoretically you could trick people. You could tell people, oh, I did this, or right? This is all just, and there, at least there was a maaseh for her to do. In this case, right? you could say, oh, I forgot. I just did, like with the halakat ner, we said the same thing. She could say, oh, I forgot. I wasn't paying attention. So they would say shchechim anu, and therefore chazru b'kansu ala shochech. So then they made also people who forgot. They said, oh, can't eat the food at all, and that way people will not lie. Okay, there's always this concern about people lying and tricking others. This is very tricky because other people are going to eat the food. Now we go back to this issue that we quoted this source, and in this source, Rabbi Meir is the one who's more lenient, and Rabbi Yehuda is the one who's more stringent. So Kasha Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Meir, and Kasha Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. So if you look at the chart, I charted out. So on the sheet, Rabbi Meir said in the Braita in yesterday's stuff, Chamin avalot tavshil, okay? And Rabbi Yehuda said, Chamin vitavshil, right? Rabbi Meir said only things that are mitztamek v'yafelo, and not things that are mitztamek v'ralo. And in our Braita, and Rabbi Yehuda said the opposite, and in this Braita, it's flipped. So now we're going to have to explain what's the difference between yesterday, when we were talking there, it was about putting it on. Now, the difference was that was, can you do it or not? And here, it's you forgot. Okay, so that's going to be one of the differences, one of the answers. So Kasha de Rabbi Meir, and Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda, So Rabbi Meir, lo Kasha. Why? Halachatchila, hadiavad. Very simply, that was telling you what you're not allowed to do. You can't put things on the fire if they're going to improve, right? Unless you do grufag tuma, because you might come to stoke the coals. However, here is if you already did it, right? You did it by accident, and then we treat it differently. We'll be more lenient. To Rabbi Yehuda nami lo kashya, kan begrufag tuma, kan b'sheina grufag tuma. There, it wasn't garafakatum. Here, you can say it was garafakatum, okay? And therefore, here, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. There, it was garafakatum. Kan is in the previous case. It was garafakatum, and that, right, you already put the coals to the side, and that's why he allows it. And here, he doesn't allow it because it's not garafakatum. You haven't put the coals to the side. Okay, so that's how we answer both questions. Ibayim. Now we have another question, which again is not going to be clear exactly what this question is. Avar v'shahamai. What if you did it and you left it? Okay, now, assuming usually avar means you did it on purpose. So it seems to be asking, what if you did it on purpose? Okay, which is a little bit of a strange question. Okay, the Gemara is going to say now, mi kansu Rabbanan or lo? Did the rabbis penalize him or not? Okay, some people, so Rashi says, you can even see in the Dibur HaMatkil of Rashi, his nusach was, avar v'shahab mezid mai. But some people say that this is actually asking a question on our case specifically. What if you did it accidentally? Okay, and that it doesn't mean on purpose. So again, your answer is going to depend on what, your halacha l'mas is going to depend on what you think the question is. Tashma. Okay, tashma is when we say we're going to bring some other source. Okay, tashma is one of those words in the Gemara that can mean a lot of things. The main thing it means is you're bringing a source from somewhere else. It could be Tanaitic, it could be from the Amoraim. The main thing is you're bringing some other source and then it could be to raise a question, it could be to bring an answer, it could be to strengthen your argument, it could be for many reasons. In this case, there's a question, and then they bring a tashma. It's obviously to bring an answer. So they said, let's learn from here. Amar Shmuel bar Natan, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Kishalach Rabbi Yossi Litzipoli. Okay, we're now going to have a situation that happened. When he went to Tzipoli, Matzah Chamin Shenishtuhu al Gabe Kira. He found hot water that had been left on the Kira. Now again, it's not clear whether it was left on purpose or by accident, depending on whether your question was on purpose or by accident. I'm sorry, on purpose or by accident. So he finds this hot water that had been left on the stove. V'lo asar lahen, and he didn't forbid it. Beitzim mitzumakot, he also found eggs that were cooking. Shenishtahu al gabe kira, okay, they were shriveled, that had been left on the fire. V'asar lahen, and those he forbade. Now, what does this sound like? My lav l'otah Shabbat, that he forbade them. Okay, now what's the difference? The eggs, we're going to assume, are mitztamek v'yafelo. The hot water, we already know, is only bad for it because it's going to evaporate. So therefore, he forbade the ones that were mitztamek v'ralo. So what do you see here? He paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that if you leave it out, again, assuming the question is shachach, if you forgot it, then we're going to be machmir and say it's a problem like Rabbi Yehuda. So let's assume we go with that read. So my lav la'otah Shabbat, doesn't it mean asar lahem? What does it mean asar lahem? He forbade them. Well, the assumption is it means he forbade it for them to eat it. that makes sense. And which would then answer a question. But now they say, no, just asar lahem doesn't necessarily mean he forbade them to eat it. It could be lo l'Shabbat haba'ah. He forbade them to do this for the upcoming week. In other words, he said, okay, now, again, depending on if it was shogeg or mazid, let's say it was accidental. It was left there accidentally. So what's he doing? He's telling them, don't do this next week, though, right? I know you did this accidentally, but make sure not to do this on purpose. If you say it was b'mazid, then you'd have to say something like, well, you warned him. In other words, right? You did this once. Okay, we're not going to penalize you. But if you do this a second time, we're going to penalize you. Okay? And then he said, basically, don't do this next week. Now, what can one infer from this story? Really? It's good for eggs if you leave them for a really long time. Aren't they going to dry out? So the Gemara says, no, really are. They would stomach the afelo, and now they're going to bring proof of someone who really liked this kind of thing. We were once invited as guests in the same place. The eggs shriveled up so small, they were like crab apples. And we devoured them. They were delicious. So here you see that maybe at least it could be personal, or it could be a particular way of making them, that it's actually delicious. Okay, moving on. Now we get to another sugya, which I told you today, it's going to be very unclear what exactly we're talking about here. It's even more than before. Beit Hillel omrim af machzirim. Beit Hillel says you can return something to the fire. This is what we saw in the Mishnah. Amar Rav Sheshet, l'divrei ha'omer machzirim, afilu b'Shabbat. Those who say you can return, like Beit Hillel, he means even on Shabbat. Okay, now what does this mean, even on Shabbat? So Rashi says, b'Shabbat, he means the next day. Okay, that if you take something off the fire, you can put it back on the next day. Okay, now this is an extreme opinion. Most people don't think you can do this because unless it retains its heat, and I don't know how it's going to retain its heat overnight. Some people think what it means is even if you took it off before Shabbat and you want to put it back on Shabbat. Okay, and that's what we're talking about. No matter what, we're only talking about if it's garuf b'katum. Okay, if the coals are put to the side or you've put ashes on top. We learned that already in the Mishnah, that no matter how you understood the Mishnah, everybody agrees that you can't put something back on an open fire. That's for sure not the case. But the issue here is what we call mechse kimavasha. It looks like you're cooking. This is where we get into sugyot about, can you put things on the plata on Shabbat morning? Can you put something on if you take your soup off the plata, you're allowed to put it back on. This is where it all comes from. Although it's interesting, like we're careful, right? Soup, there are issues about it if it's liquid. Because again, depending on how you hold, ein bishul achar bishul. Once something's already cooked, it can't be cooked again. However, with water or liquids, they kind of drop their boil, and then when you put them back, they recook, and then there's an issue of bishul achar bishul. Anyway, it's not so clear-cut what they're discussing here, and we're going to see that there's a lot of differences of opinion about all sorts of other details also, which all come up in the halacha in different poskim in different ways. So he says you can be machzir even on Shabbat. Now, the issue is if you take something off on Shabbat and put it right back on Shabbat, well, then it doesn't so much look like you're cooking because it was there and you put it back on. But if you took it off before Shabbat, if we assume that this is the reading, and you put it back on Shabbat, then it has more of a look like you're cooking, okay? For some people, this might just be talking about regular putting it back on, even if you took it off on Shabbat. So again, it's very unclear what's going on here, which creates a lot of lack of clarity or different opinions in the halacha, right? If you always wonder, why are there so many different opinions about all sorts of things? This is a good example because they're not always clear in the Gemara what exactly they're asking. They don't give you enough of the details. He also held, just like Rav Sheshet, okay, this is Rav Sheshet in Bavel, Rav Oshaya is in Eretz Yisrael. He also held you could return it even on Shabbat. He tells the following story. Now you would hope that we get more details and know what he's talking about, but still we really don't have enough details here. And it's not clear whether they did this before Shabbat, after, whether they took it off before Shabbat and put it back on Shabbat, or they're trying that the next morning. It's not so clear. We were standing before Rabbi Chia the grave, and we brought him a kumkum, a hot water pot, hot water that was boiled. We brought it up from downstairs to upstairs. And we prepared his wine for him with this hot water. And then we put it back on its spot on the fire. So here you see, again, it's not clear what you see. It's not clear when they returned it. It's not clear, right? There's a lot of things not clear here. It's not clear when they took it off, but they were able to put it back on. Below Amar Lanu Davar. And he didn't say a word, meaning he didn't complain. He didn't say, you can't do that. And the assumption is he saw that they were putting it back on the fire, because theoretically you could say maybe he didn't know, but it seems he did. But now we're going to have all sorts of limitations on this. Amar Rabbi Zreika, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Tidal. Lo shanu ela she'odan biyado. This is only if you're still holding it in your hands, okay? Aval, hinichan al gabe karka asur. But if you put it down on the ground, that's a problem. Now, they don't exactly talk about something in between that, although we'll get to, there's a question about it, right? Putting down on the ground and holding it in your hand, it could be, what if you put it down on the marble, right? You have the shayish on your counter. What if is putting it down on the ground different from putting it down on something else? We'll see that they ask the question later. Unfortunately, they're not actually going to answer it. And anyway, he says, it has to still be, it seems like Odam Biyadan is the opposite of putting it down on the ground. Amar Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Ami. So now Rabbi Ami comes and says, Rabbi Tidai, who we just quoted, Da'avad ligarmi hu da'avid. He was machmir. We don't have to hold that way. Ela hachi am Rabbi Chia am Rabbi Yochanan. But this is what Rabbi Chia said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Afilu hinichal gabe karka mutal. Okay, so now we have number one machloket. Can you put it down on the ground, or does it have to still be in your hand? That's the first machloket. And not only did they have this argument, but also Pligi bar Rav Dimi bar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. Utravayo mishmei Rabbi Elazar Amrei. They both had a debate about what Rabbi Elazar himself held. Chadamar odam biyadom mutal agav agabe karka asur. One said it's only allowed if you keep it in your hands, but not put it on the karka. Again, this sides with Rabbi Tidai. The Chadamar himifam agabe karka nami mutar. And the other one said it's fine. Amar chizkem mishmei Abaye. We're now going to have two versions of this statement. Hada amart odam biyadom mutar lo amaran ela sheda'ato lahachzir. Aval ein da'ato lahachzir asur. So what does he say now? Well, when we said it has to be in your hand, that's not enough. You also have to have intent in your mind that you're planning to return it. If you take it off without planning to put it back, well, you can't put it back. And aval ein da'ato lahachzir asur. If you don't have intent, you can't put it back. Michlal dal gabe karka afal pi sheda'ato lahachzir asur. So it sounds like you have to have both odam biyado and intent. Okay, all of a sudden intent is a factor here. Ika de Amre, however, okay, if it wasn't confusing enough and we have different opinions and it's not clear what exactly we're talking about, now we're going to say this statement, the Chizkiah said, well, some people say he said the exact opposite. Okay, so not only are we not clear what people said, but here there's a debate about what exactly he said. And at least before, the Gemara was clear about what the opinions were, just it's not 100% clear to us what situation they're discussing. Here, we have two different versions about what Chizkiah said in the name of Abaye. So when we say you can't put it on the ground, that's only if you don't have in your mind you want to put it back. But if you had intent and you took it off and you put it down on the ground, but you thought, but I'm planning to put it back, well, mutar, okay, then it will be allowed. Michlal, from here, what can you infer? Shabo dam biyado, if it's still in your hand, mutar. In other words, you only need either odam biyado or you need da'ato lachzir. Either one is sufficient. So again, we have a lot of different opinions here and different opinions about what even certain people said. By Rabbi Yirmiyah. Now comes Rabbi Yirmiyah, our favorite. He always asks nunicky questions. So now, but here, this is actually a pretty good question. We have, I talked about before, odam biyado, and we had hiniach lagabe karka, as if those are opposites, but there's a lot in between there. Tila'am b'makel. What if you stuck it on a pole? Right, you hung it on you have a peg in the wall and you hooked it onto there. Ma. What if you put it on a bed? Or like we said, on the countertop, but not on the ground? Maybe there's difference, the ground. By Rav Ashi, he asks another question. Are you allowed to take hot water from one place and put it in another place? Let's say, I'll give you a good example. Your cholent is very dry. You're allowed to take hot water from your plata or your hot water boiler and put it in your cholent, right? You're allowed to move from one mecham to another mecham. Well, the answer is teku. We don't have an answer. And because of that, some Mefarshim say we're lenient here because there's only Rabbanan. because it's already cooked. And some people say, no, we're machmir. Okay, so there's a big debate about this. Which criteria you need also, right? You're supposed to have theoretically all of these criteria, also intent, also this, right? What if you didn't? And all this comes from our sugya here. Okay, new Mishnah. Tanur shesiku bekasha begavava. Okay, we started our parak with kira. That's why it's called parak kira. Okay, which we said was 2 burners alongside each other. Now we're going to talk about 2 other types of ovens. One is an oven, which the classic oven we talked about, wide at the bottom, narrow at the top, is very, very hot. Because of that, we're more machmir. And then we're going to learn about a kupach. Okay, a kupach, the Gemara is going to explain to us what it is, but I'll already tell you because otherwise it's hard to move on, which is, it's kind of like a kirayim. It was a ceramic type of object, okay, that it looks from, there's a picture, I think in the Koran they have a good picture. Yeah, it's kind of open on one side with a wall around the other side. I don't know if it's necessarily like that always, but it's basically like kirayim, but it's only one. And because it's only one, we assume that the heat stays in more because it's a little more closed and it's only one. So when you have one, so the heat stays in more than if there's 2 and there's more room for the heat to go. Apparently that's at least what they claim. So here goes. Tanur shesiku bekasha begavava. Remember the kira shesiku bekasha begavava. We were made tell about because we said they would burn very quickly. So if you have a tanur shesiku bekasha begavava, lo yitain be'mitacho be'me'al gabav. You can't put something in it and you can't put something on top of it. Okay, either is a problem because the tanur is very, very hot. As I mentioned in the beginning, our ovens, halacha l'maaseh, are more similar to a kira than to their ovens. Our ovens are not as hot because they open from the side and therefore a lot of the heat escapes. Kupach shesiku b'kasha b'gavava. If you have a kupach, right there, they don't even need to say, by the way, the gefet and eitzim, because that's obvious. If you have a kupach, which is b'kasha b'gavava, hareza kikirayim. We treat that like the kirayim. But begefet uve'itzim hareu kitanu. So here we're going to be more machmir. Okay, we're going to be machmir if it's, okay, the kupach is kind of in the middle. If you have the lighter kind of stuff, then we'll treat it like the kirayim. If you have the heavier kind of flammable materials, then we're going to treat it like a tanur. So here comes the Gemara. Tanur shesiku, savar Rav Yosef lememar, tocho mamash, al gabav mamash. It sounds like, okay, it said, lo yitain be'mitocho be'me'al gabav. What's not mentioned here? Next to it, right? So it says you can't put it inside and you can't put it on top, but it didn't say you can't put it next to the oven. So therefore he assumed aval lismoch shapir dami. If you want to put something next to the oven, even though there's a lot of heat in the oven, that's allowed because it didn't say so in the Mishnah. But Eitivei Abaye comes and questions him and says, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense for you to say that. Why? Well, based on the kupach. Kupach shesiku bekasha begavava. What did it say in the Mishnah? Harehu kikirayim, right? It's like the kirayim. But begefet uveitzim harehu kitanur. V'asur. Now, what does this seem to imply? That if you put gefet and eitzim, it's like the tanur, not like the kirayim. Now, this is a little bit strange because what did we say for kirayim? It doesn't work either to put it begefet uveitzim, right? You have to do rufa uktuma. So, ha-kikira, it sounds like, since you say begefet uveitzim, it's like a tanur, it sounds like he's saying if it were like kirayim, it would actually be allowed. Well, what would be allowed, right? B'maya skinan. Ilema al gabav. Well, now it depends. If you're saying it goes above b'mai, in which case? Ilema kishe'ino garufa katum, right? If you're going to say it's if it's not garufa katum and you didn't move the coals aside, ela kiraki and agrufa tuba al gabav mishare. That he's assuming that we're comparing it to the case of Eina Grufuk Tuma. Now, if it's Eina Grufuk Tuma, even a kira would be a problem. So to say it's like a tanur and not a kira, well, both are forbidden. So that doesn't make any sense. And therefore, it must be elalav lismo. It must be talking dafka about even next to it, it's forbidden. So if you have a kupach with gefet and eitzim, you can't even put something next to it like the tanur. But hareu kitanur va'asir. But if it were like the kirayim, theoretically, right? If it were, it's not. But it's like the tanur and not the kirayim, because the kirayim you can actually put it next to it. Okay, and therefore he thinks that even lismoch would be forbidden, and that's the chidush of the kupach being like the tanur. So am Rabbanit Barava, no, you don't have to explain it that way. You could say hacha bekufach garuf bekatum v'tanur grufa uktuma askinan Shareu Kitanur. Da'af al gav dekov bekatum al gabav asur de'ika kira ki grufa ktuma shapir dami. Says, why are you assuming it was comparing it to a case where ain't a grufa ktuma? You could say it was comparing it to a kira that was garufa katum, and it's to tell you that a kira and a kupach and a tanur, both of whom are not garufa katum. Even if they're garufa katum, even if you put the ashes you put ashes on top of the coals, or you move the coals to the side, both those are going to be forbidden in any case because the heat is greater there than in the kira, in which case you could still say that lismoch is allowed. Okay, so there's a debate here about lismoch. Tanya Kavateda Abaye. Now we're going to bring a braita that proves Abaye. Remember what Abaye said? Abaye said lismoch in a tanur is also forbidden. So tanur shisiku bekasha begavava. Here's our braita. A tanur that you lit with kasha begavava. Ein somchim lo. Here it says it explicitly in the braita. Okay, you can't put anything near it. Ve'ein sarich lomar al gabav. Ve'ein sarich lomar litocho. Right. This is different from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said not tocho and not al gabav. Right. But here it says specifically ein somchim, and then obviously not al gabav, and obviously not litocho. Ve'ein sarich lomar begefet uve'etzim, and all the more so, obviously, this is what I said before when I meant the Mishnah. Of course, if you put it with gefet uve'etzim, if the kasha begavava, we're going to be so machmir. Of course, gefet uve'etzim. Again, we're already off topic because this whole thing was to teach you about smicha, which they had already said. Kupach shesiku bekasha begavava somchimo, but in a kupach we're going to be more meka. We're going to allow you, if it's kasha begavava, to be somchim. Ve'ein notnin al gavav, but you can't put on top. Begefet uve'etzim ein somchimo. But if it's a kupach with gefet and eitzim, then ein somchimo. Okay, again, the big difference between the kupach and the kirayim is that the kupach has one flame, and because of that, now you might say the kirayim has two flames, all the more heat. But the assumption here is that since it's one flame, it's contained more in one small area, and there's place. Truth is, I would probably say it like this. Maybe I'm comparing it incorrectly to ours. There's a place for two pots in the kirayim, and there's fire underneath both. It's not like we have two burners. It's not really like that. It's really that there's fire underneath, and there's a place for two pots. So that's a much bigger space, and the heat from the fire is going to dissipate into both places. Whereas in the kupach, you have a place for the stuff underneath and one place to put a pot. So therefore, the heat stays in, and it's going to be hotter than the oven. Okay, that's the main difference. Okay, now we're going to Amarle Rav Acha Berei de Rava. Okay, we're on the fifth wide line. So Rav Acha Berei de Rava says to Rav Ashi, Hi kupach, hechidami. What's exactly the kupach? This is now the Gemara is getting to it. Ika kira dami, afilu begefet uve'etzim nami. And if it's like a kira, then it should be like a kira. And if it's kitanur dami, if it's more like an oven, afilu bekasha begavava nami lo. Even if you use the twigs and the straw. So Amarle nafish hevle midikira. There's more. It's more heat than the kira, is exactly as I said. Vizutar havle miditanur, but it's less than the oven, right? It's right in between in terms of how much heat there is in this space. Hechidami kupach, hechidami kira. So what does it look like? Am Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. Kupach makom shvitat ktera achat. The kupach has a place for one pot. Kira makom shvitat shtei kterot, and the kira has a place for two. Amar Abaye, the Itema Rabbi Yirmiyah, Af Ananami Tanina. We also see this in a braita. Kirasha nechleka leorka tehora lerachbat mea. In other words, Rabbi Yirmiyah's or Abaye, they're going to basically say we can learn from this braita that it must be. This is interesting. It's almost like as if they're not sure of the definition. It's clear that that's the definition. Okay, here's an interesting way of proving it. Okay, now we go back to laws of Tuma and Tara, purity and impurity. How do those laws work? If you break something and it's still a kli, well then it's still makabel tumah. If you break something and it's no longer useful, then it's not susceptible to impurity anymore, and it also becomes tahor. It loses its status of impurity. So here he says, if you have a kira, which we said is two burners, right? Like there's place for two pots. It's one fire underneath, but place for two pots. If it was nechleka leorka, okay, you slice it horizontally. Tehora, right? It breaks horizontally. It's not useful anymore. But lirochba, if you if it breaks in the middle, right, that direction, then right, what you end up with one place for one pot and one place for another pot, they're just separated, then it's tme'ah. Then it's still going to be a kli. But a kupach, bein lo or ka, bein l'rochbo tahur, because at this point, if it's only room for one pot, well, if you split that in half, either which way, you split it horizontally or vertically, it's not going to be a kli anymore. Okay, next, Mishnah. Now we're going to talk about what we call toldot hachama and toldot ha-esh. Okay, what does this mean? Fire you can't cook with. What if you cook with something that was heated up by fire, it became hot because of fire, and now you use that to cook something? Or likewise, if you heat up something that you heat up something from the sun, because it's hot from the sun, then it also, right, cooks something. So what could these possible things cook? Well, eggs. Eggs cook very easily. So, okay, I'm thinking of my son in tanks, right? You could, in the hot summer months, you could boil an egg, right? You could probably scramble an egg on a tank. So, okay, you can't boil up an egg putting it next to hot water. You can't wrap it in a hot cloth that was heated up. Rabbi Yossi matir. Rabbi Yossi says this is allowed. Because again, it's something that was heated up by something else. You can't wrap it fully in sand or dust in order to roast it. Now, the people in Tiberia, okay, before they didn't use fresh water apparently from the Kinneret, so they wanted water, they wanted to warm it up. They warmed it up using the chamei Tiberia. So they put it, they gave this pipe, okay, litoch amash al chamin. They put it in this channel, this aqueduct of hot water. Amru lahem chachamim, im b'Shabbat kechamin shulchmu b'Shabbat va'asulim b'rechitza or b'shtia. If you did this on Shabbat, well, you can't do that. That's like water heated up on Shabbat. And you can't heat water from other hot water, basically. The im b'yom tov kechamim shulchmu b'yom tov va'asulim b'rechitza mutavim b'shtia. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to heat up water, but you're only allowed to heat up water for the purposes of eating, for drinking, and not for the purposes of washing. So therefore, you can use it for eating or drinking, but not for washing. Okay, we'll stop here for today, and we'll pick up here tomorrow with the Gemara and the Gemara's first question.